Daniel Rhodes never thought the universe would notice him. Sure, he worked for the Earth Diplomatic Corps, but his job was small, translation assistant mostly. He sat in a quiet office, drank too much coffee, and helped senior diplomats understand alien grammar rules. He had never been off Earth, never seen a real alien face to face. So when his supervisor burst into his cubicle that morning looking pale and sweating, Daniel thought maybe a translation had gone wrong. "Pack your things. Rhodes," the man said. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" "You've been promoted." Daniel stared. "Promoted? To what?" "Lead envoy, Saravani Empire. Ceremony starts in 6 hours." Daniel almost laughed. "That's not funny." "It's not a joke. You're the only linguist cleared for Saravani Level 4 language. Our ambassador fell sick. The council wants the ceremony now, or they'll consider it an insult. You're it." Before Daniel could argue, 2 armed escorts were at his side, leading him to the spaceport. The journey. The shuttle ride was a blur. Daniel barely had time to grab his tablet and a clean suit. Outside the window, Earth's blue glow faded into the endless dark. His escorts didn't speak much, only giving short instructions. He tried to study the Saravani customs file, but his hands shook. The Saravani were a proud ancient species, tall, graceful, skin like polished silver and eyes that reflected light like liquid stars. They valued ceremony above almost everything, and today Daniel was expected to meet their princess. The file warned, "Do not bow too low, do not touch without permission, and never show the soles of your shoes." Easy enough. But then he saw the note. Physical greeting protocol. Handshake permitted if initiated by royalty. Daniel made a mental note. If she didn't move her hand first, he'd keep his arms glued to his sides. Arrival at the Saravani capital, Damas. Shuttle descended into the Saravani capital city, all silver towers and glowing bridges that floated above a sea of mist. The landing bay doors opened, and Daniel stepped into the cool, perfumed air. The place smelled faintly of rain and something sweet. A line of Saravani guards awaited him, armor shining, long spears in hand. At their head stood an older Saravani, man wearing a sash of deep blue. "Envoy Rhodes," the man said in perfect English. "Welcome to Saravar Prime. I am Lord Calith, Royal Steward. The princess is expecting you." Daniel's throat felt dry. "It's an honor." The steward gave him a sharp look as if measuring him. "You are younger than I expected." "Sorry," Daniel said. "I didn't expect me either." The corners of Calith's mouth twitched. Whether in amusement or irritation, Daniel couldn't tell. The Hall of Stars. They led Daniel through a long corridor, walls covered in glowing constellations. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadow. Everywhere he looked, he saw carvings of strange beasts and winged figures. Finally, they reached 2 massive doors carved from black crystal. Calith raised a hand, and the doors swung open silently. Inside was the Hall of Stars. Hundreds of alien nobles stood in perfect lines, their clothes shimmering like starlight. Music, soft and slow, echoed through the chamber. At the far end, seated on a raised silver throne, was Princess Vieira. The princess. Daniel had seen images of Saravani royalty before, but none prepared him for this. Her skin seemed to catch the light and bend it, like moonlight on water. Her hair, if it could be called that, was a cascade of silver threads that moved like a breeze touched them, though the air was still. Her eyes were the color of a clear night sky, and they seemed to see everything at once. She rose gracefully, her long gown trailing behind her. Every noble in the room lowered their heads as she stepped forward. Daniel remembered his instructions. Bow slightly, keep his hands visible, wait for her to speak first. When she reached him, she studied him silently for a long moment. Then, without a word, she extended her hand. The handshake Daniel's mind froze. She had initiated the handshake. This was fine. This was allowed. He reached out, trying to keep his hand steady. His palm met hers. Her skin was cool, smooth like polished stone, yet somehow alive. But the moment their hands touched, everything changed. Valeura's eyes widened. A faint, almost invisible shiver passed through her body. Her fingers tightened on his hand, not letting go. Daniel blinked. "Is everything okay?" he whispered. She didn't answer. She just stared at him, no, through him, as if seeing something impossible. Then her shoulders began to tremble, not from cold, not from fear. Something deeper. The hall, once filled with quiet music and polite silence, seemed to hold its breath. The Saravani nobles exchanged glances. The guards gripped their spears. Valeura whispered something in her own language, too fast for Daniel to fully catch, but he thought he heard the word sign. Lord Calith's eyes went wide. "Princess," he said, voice tight. "What is it?" She finally released Daniel's hand, but stepped back as if she'd touched fire. "The touch sign," she breathed. The music stopped. The sudden change Calith turned sharply to Daniel. "You will come with us, now." Daniel looked around. Sure? Did I do something wrong?" No one answered. Two guards stepped forward, their tall spears gleaming, and motioned for him to follow. Daniel glanced back at Valeura. Her hands were still trembling. She watched him leave, her expression unreadable, except for the fact that her eyes never left his. The guest quarters, they didn't throw him in a cell, but it might as well have been one. His guest quarters were beautiful, all silver. Walls and soft lighting, but the door locked from the outside. He tried his communicator. No signal. Daniel paced the room, mind racing. He replayed the moment over and over. She shook. She said something about a touch sign. What did that mean? And why was everyone acting like he'd just pulled a weapon? Outside the door, he could hear muffled voices in Saravani. The translators in his head tried to catch up, but only fragments made it through. "Cannot be coincidence. Prophecy. The outsider." Daniel froze. Prophecy. Outsider. None of this made sense. The warning hours, later, maybe less, maybe more, time felt strange here. A soft knock came at the door. It slid open just enough for a slim figure to slip inside. It was a young Saravani woman dressed in plain servant robes. She bowed quickly. "Envoy Rhodes," she whispered in halting English. "You must be careful." Daniel frowned. Careful about what? "They will not let you leave," she said. Her eyes darted to the door. Not after the touch sign, not after she felt it. He stepped closer. "What is the touch sign?" She hesitated. "It is not my place to say. But the princess will send for you. When she does, listen. And remember, not all who smile are your friends." Before Daniel could ask more, she slipped out and the door locked again. The princess's message, not long after, another knock came. This time, it was a guard with a sealed envelope. The seal was silver, stamped with a symbol, two intersecting circles with a star in the center. Daniel opened it. Inside was a single line, written in careful English. "We need to talk. You carry the mark, though you do not know it." He stared at the note. He had no idea what she meant, but as he set it down, his eyes fell on his wrist. The small, faint scar he'd had since childhood, the one shaped almost exactly like two circles and a star, suddenly didn't feel so meaningless anymore. Outside, the guards changed shifts. 3 now stood at his door instead of 2, and somewhere, far above the city, the Saravani Council was already deciding his fate. Daniel did not sleep that night. Not because the bed was uncomfortable, it was softer than anything on earth, but because every time he closed his eyes, he saw the princess's face, not just her beauty, not just the silver light in her eyes. It was the way she had looked at him after their handshake, the shock, the tremble, the way the entire hall seemed to freeze in that single moment. And now, there was the note. You carry the mark, though you do not know it. He lay on the bed, staring. At his wrist, the scar had always been there, faint but clear. As a kid, he used to tell friends it was from a bike crash. The truth was, he couldn't remember how he'd gotten it. His earliest memory of it was when he was about 5 years old. But the princess had seen it. And suddenly, it meant something. Muffled voices. Somewhere beyond the door, Daniel heard the quiet shuffle of guards. Then, faintly, words in the Saravani tongue. His translator implant picked up fragments. Cannot be allowed to leave, prophecy, danger, the outsider returns. He pressed his ear to the door, but the voices faded. Whatever this outsider was, it seemed to be about him. And whatever prophecy they kept whispering about, it didn't sound good. The breakfast that wasn't. The next morning, if it was morning in this city under endless silver skies, Daniel heard a knock. The door slid open, and 2 tall guards entered. Neither spoke. One carried a tray of food, strange bread-like rolls, a cup of shimmering blue liquid. The other simply stood with a spear in hand, watching Daniel closely. Daniel forced a smile. No coffee? They didn't react. The food was set on the small table, and without another word, they left and locked the door again. He sat down, staring at the meal. His stomach growled, but his mind was too busy turning over questions. Why am I here? Why is the princess so interested in me? What is the touch sign, and why do they act like I'm dangerous? A visitor. Without permission. A soft sound at the air vent made him look up. The cover shifted, and the same young servant girl from last night slid it open. Her silver eyes scanned the room quickly before she slipped inside. You shouldn't be here, Daniel said in a low voice. She ignored that. The council meets today. They speak of you. Great, Daniel said dryly. Do I get a vote? This is not a time for jokes, she hissed. They think you are the outsider from the prophecy. Daniel rubbed his forehead. You keep saying that word. Outsider. What does it mean? In our oldest stories, she whispered, there was one who came from far away. He saved our people in a time of darkness. He bore a mark on his skin, 2 circles and a star. The mark was a bond with the royal bloodline. Daniel froze. Like this? He pulled up his sleeve to show the scar. Her eyes widened. Yes, exactly like that. But that's impossible, Daniel said. I'm just a translator from Earth. I've never been here before in my life. She leaned closer. The prophecy says the outsider will return when the empire is on the edge of ruin. But his return will also bring the shadow year, the great trial before our survival or destruction. That sounds not good, Daniel muttered. Before he could ask more, heavy footsteps sounded in the hall. The servant's eyes went wide. She slipped back into the vent without another word. The door opened. Summoned Lord Caliph entered, flanked by 2 guards. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. The princess has requested your presence, he said. Daniel swallowed. Okay, but maybe you could tell me why. Now, Caliph interrupted. Daniel stood and followed. The guards walked close behind, the points of their spears only inches from his back. The hidden passage, instead of taking the main corridor, Caliph led Daniel through narrow side halls and spiral staircases. The walls here were darker, lit only, by small glowing orbs. Daniel realized these weren't meant for public use. They were service passages. Finally, they reached a set of tall doors marked with a symbol Daniel recognized from the princess's note. 2 circles with a star. Caliph stopped. The princess wishes to speak to you privately. You will answer her questions with honesty. Sure, Daniel said. Not like I have a choice. Caliph opened the doors. The princess speaks. The room beyond was smaller than Daniel expected, circular, with walls of pale glass that looked out over the city's glowing bridges. Princess Vieira stood near the window, her back to him. She wore a simpler gown than yesterday, though it still shimmered with every movement. She turned, her expression unreadable. "Envoy Rhodes, Your Highness," Daniel said with a small bow. "You are not what I expected," she said softly. "Trust me, I get that a lot." Her lips twitched, almost like she was fighting a smile. Then her face grew serious again. "When we touched, I felt something old, a resonance. The mark on your wrist is the same as the one in our royal archives, carved into the temple. Stone by the first outsider." Daniel shook his head. "I've never been here before. I don't even know how I got this scar." "Perhaps you do not," she said, "but the mark recognizes you. That is enough to alarm the council." "Why? If the outsider helped you before, shouldn't that be a good thing?" Her gaze darkened. "Because the prophecy says that when the outsider returns, the Empire will face a trial that could end us, and some on the council believe that if you are removed, the trial will never come." Daniel's stomach tightened. "Removed as in—" She didn't answer. The offer Vieira stepped closer. "I do not believe you are here to harm us, but I must be certain. There is a way to prove the truth." She reached into her gown and drew out a small crystal disc. Inside it shimmered a moving star map. "This is a chart to a place forbidden in our empire," she said. "It is where the first outsider arrived centuries ago. If we go there and find nothing, the council will see that you are not him. But if we find proof—" Daniel exhaled slowly. "Proof of what?" "That you are meant to stand with us or against us." Interrupted. Before Daniel could answer, a loud chime sounded through the room. Caliph's voice came from beyond the door. "Your Highness, the council demands your presence. Urgently." Vieira's jaw tightened. She slipped the crystal disc into Daniel's hand. "Hide this. Say nothing." The doors opened and Caliph entered with the guards. His eyes flicked to Daniel, then to the princess. "We must go. Now." Vieira nodded. "Escort Envoy Rhodes back to his quarters, and see that no one enters without my permission." Daniel wanted to protest, but the look in her eyes told him this wasn't the time. Back in the cage, he was marched back to his guest room. The door locked behind him. He sat on the bed, turning the crystal disc in his hands. The map inside shifted slowly, the glowing points of stars rearranging themselves like pieces in a puzzle. Somewhere out there was the place the princess wanted him to see. Somewhere out there was the truth about the outsider, and maybe about him. A strange sound. Hours later, when the city's silver glow dimmed into night, Daniel heard a faint tapping at the wall. 3 short taps, a pause, then 2 more. He checked the vent. The servant girl slid it open again. Her eyes darted to the crystal disc in his hand. "You have it," she whispered. "How did you—" "She trusts you. I will help you leave when the time comes. But the council is moving quickly. They speak of ending this before the week is over." Daniel's chest tightened. "You mean ending me?" She didn't answer directly. "Be ready. The princess will call for you again. And when she does, you must decide. Do you stay and be judged, or run and find the truth yourself?" Before he could reply, she vanished back into the vent. The feeling of being watched. That night, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. Every time he looked toward the door, the faint shadow of a guard shifted. He tried to sleep, but the scar on his wrist burned faintly, as if something in it recognized the crystal disk. He didn't know what was coming next, but he was sure of one thing. His life had just stopped being about translation work and polite diplomacy. He was caught in a game older than human history, and the next move was going to decide everything. Daniel didn't remember falling asleep. One moment he was lying on the bed, staring at the faint scar on his wrist. The next, a soft knock woke him. It wasn't the harsh pounding of guards. This was lighter, hesitant. The door slid open just enough for Princess Velra to step inside. She wore a dark cloak that covered her silver gown, the hood shadowing her face. Behind her, the young servant girl slipped in and closed the door. "You need to come with me," the princess said quietly. Daniel sat up. "Now? What about the guards?" She glanced at the servant. "Taken care of. For the next 10 minutes, the corridor is empty. After that—" She didn't finish the sentence. Daniel grabbed his jacket. "Where are we going?" "To the Hall of Memory," Velra said. "It is time you know why the mark frightens my people." The Hall of Memory. They moved quickly through shadowed service passages. The servant girl led the way, checking corners before motioning them forward. The sound of distant footsteps echoed through the halls, but no one crossed their path. Finally, they reached a pair of tall bronze doors carved with scenes of battle, ships, and strange beasts. The princess touched the center, and the doors opened, silently. Inside was a vast circular chamber. The air was cooler here, and the floor glowed faintly with starlight projected from above. At the center stood a single pillar. Upon it rested a crystal sphere, swirling with slow-moving images. "This," Velra said, "is the Hall of Memory. It holds the oldest records of our people, stories older than our written history. Some say it remembers the truth even when our leaders try to hide it." The first outsider, she approached the sphere and touched it. Light flared, and an image formed in the air, faint at first, then sharper. Daniel saw a tall figure in strange armor standing before a crowd of Saravani. The figure was human, definitely human. "This is the one we call the first outsider," Velra said. "He came to us in our darkest age, when our sun was dying and our enemies closed in from every side. He brought knowledge, machines, and hope. He fought beside my ancestor, Queen Soraya, and together they saved our world." Daniel frowned. "That's impossible. Humans didn't have interstellar travel centuries ago." Velra's eyes were steady. "And yet there he is. The records say he bore a mark on his wrist, 2 circles and a star, the same as yours." The bond. The image shifted. Daniel saw the outsider and the Saravani queen clasping hands, much like his handshake with Velra. A flash of light passed. "Between them." "What is that?" Daniel asked. "The bond," Velra said softly. "A rare connection between 2 bloodlines, human and Saravani. Our historians believe it allowed them to share thoughts in times of danger. It made them fight as one mind." Daniel stared at the image. "And you think I'm him?" "I think you are tied to him," she said. "Perhaps a descendant, perhaps something stranger. The shadow year." The sphere's images darkened, cities burned, ships fell from the sky. But the bond was not. "Only a blessing," Velra continued. "The prophecy says that when the bond returns, so will the shadow year, a time of war and betrayal. The first outsider vanished during this time. Some say he was killed by the council of that age who feared his power." Daniel's voice was quiet. "And you think your council now might try the same?" Her silence was the answer. A dangerous choice. Velra stepped closer. "The place I showed you on the star map, the Forbidden System, was the last location of the outsider's ship. If we go there, we may find the truth. But it will mean defying the council. If we are caught, they will call it treason, Daniel glanced at the servant girl, who gave a quick nod as if to say, "I'll help." He looked back at the princess. "If we don't go, what happens? Then the council will decide your fate without knowing the truth, and I fear their decision will be final." Footsteps. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The princess pulled her cloak tighter. Calith's voice rang out. "Your Highness, the council has requested you again, and they are searching for the human." Vielra's eyes met Daniel's. "Hide the disc. Hide it well. We will move soon." The servant girl hurried him toward a side passage. Daniel tucked the crystal star map inside his jacket just as the bronze doors opened. A close call Calith entered with 3 guards. His eyes scanned the room. "Envoy Rhodes. Interesting. I was told you were in your quarters." Daniel forced a smile. "Got lost. Big palace." Calith's gaze lingered on him, then on the princess. "The council is growing impatient. They expect you both in the chamber within the hour." The princess nodded calmly. "We will come." Return to the cage. Daniel was escorted back to his quarters. The guards were less subtle now, 4 of them posted at the door, weapons ready. He sat on the bed, mind racing. The image of the first outsider burned in his memory, a human. Here, centuries ago, and a bond with the royal bloodline that matched his own scar. The plan later that night, the servant girl returned through the vent. "It is ready," she whispered. "What is?" Daniel asked. "The ship. The princess will meet you at the western hangar at second bell." "We must move before the council knows." Daniel felt a twist of fear in his stomach. "If we get caught, you will be executed," she said plainly. "But if we do nothing, the same will happen. Better to run toward the truth than wait for the blade." She slipped back into the vent without waiting for his reply, waiting for the bell. Daniel paced. The crystal disc felt heavy in his pocket. Every tick of the clock was louder than it should have been. Finally, the second bell rang, soft and deep, somewhere in the distance. He stood, took a deep breath, and opened the vent. Escape. The servant led him through twisting passages, avoiding guards and cameras. At one point, they ducked behind a pillar as a patrol passed, the sound of boots echoing off the silver walls. Finally, the cool night air hit his face. The western hangar loomed ahead, its gates half open. Inside, a sleek diplomatic transport waited, small, fast, built for slipping through dangerous zones. Vielra stood by the ramp, her cloak billowing in the wind. She met his eyes. "Are you ready?" Daniel swallowed hard. "No, but let's go anyway." Departure. They boarded. Quickly. The servant girl worked the controls like she'd done it 100 times. The engines hummed to life, a low vibration running through the deck. From the hangar's far side, shouts erupted. Guards ran toward them, weapons drawn. "Go!" Vielra commanded. The ship lifted, turning toward the dark sky. Energy bolts streaked past the windows, but none hit. Then the stars opened before them, and they shot into the black. The tremble returns as the city fell away behind them. Daniel noticed Vielra's hands. They were trembling again, just like. During the handshake, he frowned. "You're shaking." She didn't meet his eyes. "I know. It means the bond is waking, and when it does, the shadow year begins." Daniel gripped the armrest. "I really hope that's not as bad as it sounds." "It is worse," she said quietly. Outside, the stars seemed to stretch into infinity, and the map in Daniel's pocket pulsed faintly, like it knew they were on the way. The stars rushed past the ship's windows like silver rivers as Daniel sat stiffly in the pilot's seat beside Princess Vielra. His heart beat fast, not just from the speed, but from the unknown waiting ahead. The crystal disc nestled in. His jacket pocket pulsed softly, like it was alive, guiding them through the empty black. Arrival. The Forbidden System was unlike anything Daniel had seen. It wasn't on any of Earth's star maps, nor in the Saravani's official charts. The system lay hidden behind a dense nebula of swirling blue gas, glowing faintly like a ghost. Velra piloted the ship carefully, weaving through the thick clouds of cosmic dust. Daniel watched the instruments as the disk's star map projected. A glowing point ahead, something large and still. There, Velra said, voice low. The last known location of the first outsider's ship. The ship emerged from the nebula into a small system with a dead star at its center, cold and dark. The derelict station orbiting the dead star was a massive structure, black and twisted, like a broken spider's web. "It's huge," Daniel whispered. Velra nodded. "We call it the Forgotten Spire, built long ago by the first outsider's people, or so the stories say." Daniel felt a chill. The idea that humans had been here centuries ago, leaving behind this silent giant, was almost too much to believe. Boarding the Spire. The ship docked silently on a platform at the base of the station. The airlock hissed as it opened. Daniel and Velra stepped inside. The station's corridors were dark, lit only by their helmets' flashlights. The walls were covered with strange symbols, some familiar from Saravani history, some completely alien. They moved deeper, the silence broken only by their footsteps and the soft hum of old machinery. The core chamber, after what felt like hours. They reached a large chamber at the heart of the spire. In the center stood a pedestal, glowing with a faint blue light. On it rested a strange device, part machine, part crystal, humming with energy. Daniel approached, feeling the crystal disk pulse in his jacket again. "This must be it," Velra said. "The source of the bond." Daniel reached out and touched the device. Suddenly, a wave of images crashed over him, visions of battles, alliances, betrayals, and hope. The truth revealed. The visions showed the first outsider arriving on the Saravani homeworld, sharing knowledge that saved their empire from destruction. But they also showed the dark side. The council at the time feared his power and betrayed him. Daniel saw himself not as the current envoy, but as a descendant of the outsider, carrying his bloodline and his mission. Velra watched him silently. When the visions faded, Daniel looked at her. "So I'm not just a translator," he said quietly. "I'm part of something bigger." "Yes," she replied, "and that is why the council fears you, because you represent change." A new threat. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. "Alert! Unauthorized boarding detected," Velra cursed. "They found us." Daniel grabbed the crystal disk. "We need to get out." They ran through twisting corridors as the station's security drones activated. Escape and pursuit. Their ship was under attack as they raced away from the Forbidden System. Energy blasts rocked the hull, warning lights flashing. Velra piloted, with skill born of desperation, dodging debris and enemy fire. Daniel held the crystal disk tightly, feeling its power surge through him. "The bond awakens." As they jumped into hyperspace, Velra looked at Daniel. "The bond is waking fully now," she said. Daniel felt strength flowing through his veins. Together they would face the coming shadow year and maybe save the Empire. The ship emerged from hyperspace, stars stretching into points of light. Daniel's hands trembled, but this time, it was not fear. It was power, waking inside him like a rising tide. Velra sat beside him, eyes sharp, ready for what was coming. The council would not give up easily. They had sent hunters after them, and the Empire was on the edge of war. Returned to the capital, their ships slipped through the atmosphere of the Saravani capital planet, a shining city of towers and spires. But this time, it was different. The city was quieter. Guards watched them with suspicion, but no one tried to stop the princess and her strange companion. Vaelra led Daniel to the royal palace, where the council waited. The confrontation in the grand chamber, cold and echoing, the council sat in a circle. Their faces were stern, eyes cold as ice. "The outsider returns," the council leader said. "And with him the threat of the shadow year." Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady. "I am not a threat. I am a bridge between your people and my own. Together we can end the war and build a future," the council murmured. Vaelra added, "The bond is real. It is our strength, not our weakness." The trial of blood, the council demanded proof. They took Daniel to the ancient chamber of blood, where the bloodline of rulers was tested by a ritual centuries old. Daniel placed his hand on the ancient crystal. The room glowed. Images of the first outsider and the Saravani queen filled the walls, showing the bond shining bright. The council gasped. The shadow year begins. Suddenly, alarms blared. Enemy ships breached the planet's defenses. The shadow year had come. War was here. Daniel and Vaelra rushed to the city's defense center, united against darkness. The two led the Saravani forces, using the knowledge from the crystal disk and Daniel's awakened power. Their bond allowed them to share thoughts and strategies faster than any communication device. Together, they inspired soldiers and citizens alike. The turning point. The tide of battle turned. Daniel, harnessing the energy of the bond, disabled enemy warships with precision. Vaelra led a counterattack that shattered the invaders' command center. A new era. When the last enemy ship fled, the city cheered. The council acknowledged the bond and Daniel's place among them. Vaelra took her place beside him, no longer just a princess, but a partner in rebuilding the empire. Epilogue. The handshake. Revisited. Later, in the palace gardens, Daniel and Vaelra met again. This time, Daniel reached out and took her hand firmly. Vaelra smiled. No trembling this time. "We begin anew," she said. And together, Daniel agreed.